Well, this breaking news only came to us in less than about an hour or so. And of course, this is a major story given that Henry Kissinger is known to be one of the country's most important foreign policy thinkers for more than half a century. Now, the news came through a statement from his consulting firm, Kissinger Associates. We understand that he lost his life on Wednesday at his home in Connecticut, as you mentioned, but a cause of death was not provided. And of course, we know him, in his prime years, he worked as a Secretary of State and a National Security Advisor to Presidents Richard Nixon, as well as President Gerald Ford. He played a major role even behind the scenes, as some would say, in building relations back in the days, both with the Soviet Union as well as major Arab nations and China. So he was really the architect of this global diplomacy, one could say. And if you look at his earlier life, it really says a lot. The fact that he arrived as a teenage refugee from Nazi Germany. Kissinger never really lost his thick German accent. He always retained that accent throughout his life. But the fact that years later he actually became, the superstar ex-diplomat, Kissinger was really feted around the world, including in Germany, the land where he came from. And here in America, though, the young Kissinger, in his youth, he worked during the day in a factory, went to school at night. He was always known to be this ambitious guy, up until the point he drafted into the U.S. military. And years later, he was actually sent back to Germany as an American soldier. And he basically played a role in helping liberate some of the starving Jewish prisoners at a concentration camp in Ahlam. So he does have quite an interesting story already as a young man. And years later, when he took the role of one of the highest foreign diplomats in the U.S. government, he played really a major role that shaped the current world events. We know that, for example, working under President Nixon, he was the visionary behind organizing his trip to China. It was considered one of the boldest periods of diplomacy in the U.S. history. The fact that Kissinger himself, back in 1971, he arranged President Nixon's historic visit to China. At the time, there was strategic thinking involved, thinking that opening up to China would be a direct challenge to their rival, the Soviet Union at the time. Now, the interesting part is, before that visit to China, there was no U.S. leader who would ever dare make an overture to what they would call at the time as Red China. And yet, after the visit, there's no U.S. leader who dared to question the wisdom of that move. Everybody thought this was a genius strategy, and one that really brought us to today, where we are in terms of the global order, the international relations. So he is really the architect of a foreign diplomacy, the probably number one name in U.S. foreign policy, and he will always be remembered as such. And just one final note about his personality. Everybody knows that he doesn't quite have the movie star looks, but Kissinger is known to always have had some charisma, obviously a brilliant intellect, and a razor-sharp wit is how everybody defined this man. And as of Wednesday, he lost his life at the age of 100.